Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Dominion's Edge, his forearms crossed behind his chitinous back as he gazed at the blue-green planet rotating slowly below. Earth. Such a simple name for such an insignificant world. The Korthak Empire had been watching this primitive civilization for decades, studying their crude technology and barbaric wars with a mixture of amusement and disgust. "Commander." His aide Vexlin approached with measured steps, her crystalline voice carrying the report he had been expecting. "The final analysis of human military capabilities is complete." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. "And?" "As expected, sir. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and primitive explosives. Their fastest aircraft cannot even break their own planetary atmosphere efficiently. Their ground forces rely on wheeled vehicles that would be considered children's toys by our standards." Vexlin paused, consulting her datapad. "Most telling, sir. Their largest military conflicts involve hundreds of thousands of soldiers at most. Our single battle group could overwhelm their entire planet's defenses." The commander turned away from the viewing portal, his 6 eyes focusing on the tactical display that showed Earth's major military installations. Red dots marked every significant base, every nuclear facility, every command center. The humans had no idea they were being watched, cataloged, and prepared for conquest. "Have they detected our scout ships?" Zethkar asked, though he already knew the answer. "Not a single one, sir. Their sensor technology is so primitive they cannot distinguish our vessels from their own space debris. We have been conducting detailed reconnaissance for 47 standard cycles without discovery." Zethkar moved to the central command chair, his massive form settling into the specially designed seat. Around him, dozens of Korthak officers worked at their stations, coordinating the largest invasion force the Empire had assembled in 3 centuries. 15,000 warships, each carrying battle-tested warriors who had conquered 12 different star systems. The humans would provide barely any resistance. "Sir," another officer called from the communication station, "High Command is requesting our final assessment before the invasion begins." "Tell them," Zethkar said, his voice carrying the authority of countless victories, "that human civilization poses no significant military threat to the Empire. Their technology is at least 500 cycles behind ours. Their tactics are crude, their weapons ineffective against our armor, and their military organization is fragmented across hundreds of small nation-states that cannot coordinate effectively." The communications officer relayed the message, and within minutes, the response came back. The invasion was authorized to begin immediately. Zethkar stood and activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor, every battle station, every transport bay of the massive fleet. "Warriors of the Korthak Empire," he began, his words translated instantly into the various languages of the allied species that served under Korthak command. "Today, we add another world to our glorious empire. The humans below us are a primitive species, barely evolved beyond throwing rocks and sharpened sticks. Their armies are small, their weapons weak, and their resolve untested against a superior force. Throughout the fleet, soldiers checked their energy weapons, pilots prepared their fighter craft, and ground assault teams loaded into dropships. This was supposed to be more of a training exercise than a real battle. Remember, Zethkar continued, we are not here to exterminate these creatures, but to bring them into the Empire as a working class. Show them the superiority of Korthak rule, break their military resistance quickly and efficiently, and prepare them for integration. High Command expects this operation to be concluded within 7 standard days. The first wave of the invasion began at dawn over what the humans called the Pacific Ocean. 50 massive Korthak warships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their energy shields glowing bright blue against the morning sky. They targeted major military installations across North America and Asia simultaneously, expecting to cripple human command and control within hours. What happened next surprised no one aboard the Korthak ships. Human fighter jets scrambled to meet the invasion force, their primitive missiles and cannons absolutely useless against Korthak energy shields. The small, noisy aircraft were swatted from the sky like insects. Ground-based anti-aircraft systems fired their most advanced missiles, which simply bounced harmlessly off the alien hulls or were vaporized by point defense systems. Within 3 hours, every major military base in the targeted regions had been neutralized. Humans fled in panic from their cities as Korthak drop ships landed and began deploying ground forces. The first phase of the invasion was proceeding exactly as planned. "Sir," Vexilin reported from her station, "human resistance is collapsing faster than our most optimistic projections. Their government communication networks are in chaos, their military command structure is completely disrupted, and civilian populations are fleeing population centers." Zethkar nodded approvingly. "As expected, deploy ground forces to secure major industrial centers and transportation hubs. We need those facilities intact for the integration process." The second day of the invasion saw Korthak forces landing in Europe, Africa, and South America. Human armies that tried to engage them were destroyed so completely that many surrendered without firing a shot. Tank divisions were eliminated by single Korthak energy cannons. Infantry battalions were dispersed by sonic weapons that left humans unconscious but unharmed. By the third day, most major world governments had either surrendered or gone into hiding. The United Nations building in New York had been occupied by Korthak administrators who were already planning the transition to imperial rule. "This is almost disappointing," Zethkar confided to his senior staff during the evening briefing. "I had hoped for at least some challenge from the humans. Our warriors are becoming bored with such easy victories." "Perhaps, sir," suggested Major Clixton, the fleet's tactical advisor, "we should accelerate the timeline. If human resistance remains this weak, we could complete the entire operation in 5 days instead of 7. Zethkar was about to agree when an urgent communication came through from the ground forces. "Commander," the voice belonged to Colonel Thekmar, leader of the 3rd Assault Division currently operating in what humans called Europe. "We are encountering some unusual activity." "Explain," Zethkar ordered. "Sir, our advanced scouts report that while human military forces continue to retreat or surrender, there appears to be some kind of civilian evacuation occurring in remote areas. Large groups of humans are moving into mountainous regions, forests, and other terrain that would be difficult for our heavy equipment to access." Zethkar's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Frightened civilians fleeing to hide in the wilderness. Standard behavior for a conquered population. Let them go. They will emerge when they grow hungry, and we can process them for integration then." "Yes, sir, but there is something else. We have lost contact with several reconnaissance patrols sent to monitor these evacuations." This was the first piece of news that gave Zethkar any concern. "Lost contact how?" "Unknown, sir. The patrols simply stopped reporting. Their last transmissions indicated they were approaching human evacuation routes, and then nothing. We assume equipment failure or perhaps accidents in the unfamiliar terrain." Zethkar considered this. Korthak equipment was extremely reliable, but operating on an alien world always presented unexpected challenges. "Send larger patrols to investigate. If there are hazardous areas that our forces need to avoid, we should identify them quickly." "Already done, sir. We dispatched full squadrons to 3 different locations where patrols went missing." "And?" There was a long pause. "Sir, the squadrons have also stopped reporting." For the first time since the invasion began, Zethkar felt a small knot of uncertainty in his stomach. "How many soldiers?" "Approximately 300 of our best troops, sir. all equipped with full combat gear and communication equipment. Zethkar stood abruptly. 300 Korthak soldiers did not simply vanish, especially not his elite troops who had fought in campaigns across the galaxy. I want orbital reconnaissance of those areas immediately. Full sensor sweeps. Sir, we have been conducting orbital surveillance. The sensor readings show nothing unusual. Forest, mountains, some small human settlements. No signs of combat, no energy signatures indicating weapons fire, no evidence of our missing forces. The bridge fell silent except for the constant hum of the ship's systems. Zethkar stared at the tactical display, his 6 eyes trying to make sense of information that did not fit any pattern he recognized. Sir, Vexilin spoke carefully. Perhaps we should consider that the humans have some capabilities we were not aware of. Impossible, Zethkar replied immediately. We have been studying them for decades. We know every weapon in their arsenal, every piece of technology they possess. They have nothing that could threaten a single Korthak soldier, much less entire squadrons. But even as he said the words, doubt crept into his mind. In 40 years of military service, he had learned that overconfidence was the most dangerous enemy any commander could face. Double all remaining patrols, he ordered. No soldier operates alone, and I want constant communication with command. If we lose contact with any unit for more than 10 minutes, I want immediate orbital strikes on their last known position. Sir, Major Clixitun interjected, orbital strikes might harm the infrastructure we are trying to preserve. Better to rebuild a few human facilities than to lose more of our warriors to unknown threats, Zethkar replied grimly. The 4th day of the invasion brought more disturbing news. 2 more patrol squadrons had vanished without trace, this time from different continents. A supply convoy traveling through what humans called the Rocky Mountains had also disappeared, taking with it enough equipment and supplies to sustain 1,000 soldiers for a month. Sir, Colonel Thekmar's voice carried a tension that Zethkar had never heard from the veteran warrior. I must report that morale among the ground forces is becoming a concern. Explain. The troops are unsettled, sir. They volunteered for a conquest mission against a primitive species. Instead, they find themselves patrolling hostile terrain where entire units disappear without explanation. Some of the younger soldiers are beginning to spread rumors about human secret weapons or supernatural abilities. Zethkar closed his eyes and tried to think clearly. In his entire military career, he had never faced an enemy that could eliminate his forces without leaving any evidence of combat. Energy weapons left scorch marks. Projectile weapons left bodies and debris. Explosives left craters and fragments. But his missing soldiers had simply vanished, as if they had never existed. Have we received any communication from the missing units? Any emergency signals? Any final transmissions? Nothing, sir. In every case, the last communication was routine patrol reports. Normal reconnaissance data, no indication of threats or enemy contact, then silence. That evening, Zethkar convened an emergency meeting of his senior staff. The briefing room aboard the Dominion's Edge had hosted planning sessions for dozens of successful campaigns. Tonight, it felt different. I need options, he announced without preamble. We have lost over 800 soldiers without understanding how or why. The human government and military have effectively surrendered, yet somehow our forces continue to disappear. Sir, Major Clixton spoke first. I recommend we suspend ground operations and complete the invasion using orbital bombardment. We can destroy all human population centers from space and avoid whatever is causing these losses. That defeats the purpose of the invasion, Vexilin countered. High Command wants the human industrial capacity intact and the population alive for integration into the Empire. Then perhaps, suggested another officer, We should withdraw our forces from the affected areas and simply contain the human population until we can develop countermeasures for whatever threat we are facing. Zethkar considered both suggestions, but neither felt like an acceptable solution. The Korthak Empire had not become the dominant power in this sector of the galaxy by running from primitive species or changing invasion plans because of mysterious disappearances. "No," he said finally. "We proceed with the ground invasion, but we change our tactics. From now on, all patrols operate in company strength or larger. Full surveillance coverage at all times. Any unit that stops reporting gets immediate orbital fire support regardless of infrastructure concerns." "Sir," Vexilin said quietly, "what if the humans have allies we were not aware of? Another spacefaring species that is assisting them covertly?" "Our sensors would detect any alien technology," Zethkar replied, but he made a mental note to have the fleet conduct more thorough scans of the space around Earth. "What if," Major Clixton said slowly, "we were wrong about human capabilities?" The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every officer in the room had reviewed the intelligence data. Every analysis had confirmed that humans were centuries behind Korthak technology. Their weapons were primitive, their tactics crude, their military organization fragmented and ineffective, and yet 800 of the Empire's finest soldiers had vanished without explanation. As the meeting broke up, Zethkar remained in the briefing room, staring at the tactical display that showed Earth's surface. Somewhere down there, humans who should have been cowering in defeat were somehow eliminating experienced Korthak warriors without leaving any trace of battle. For the first time in his military career, Commander Zethkar wondered if he might have underestimated his enemy. The morning of the 5th day brought news that shattered the last of Zethkar's confidence in this operation. Elite Captain Mordak, commander of the finest assault unit in the 3rd Division, had requested permission to personally investigate the disappearances with his hand-picked team of 50 veterans. Captain Mordak was a legend among the Korthak military. He had single-handedly held a fortified position against 300 enemy soldiers on Kepler-7. He had led the boarding action that captured the rebel flagship during the Centauri uprising. He was the warrior other warriors told stories about. His last transmission had come from a forested region in what humans called Canada. Beginning sweep of evacuation route Gamma 7. Sensors show scattered human heat signatures approximately 2 kilometers ahead. No signs of weapons or fortifications. Proceeding as planned. That was 18 hours ago. "Sir," Vexilin approached Zethkar's command chair with visible reluctance. "Long-range sensors show no life signs in Captain Mordak's operational area. The entire search grid is empty." Zethkar felt his chitinous plates tighten across his back. "Empty how?" "No Korthak biosignatures, sir. No equipment signatures. No debris fields. No energy residue from weapons discharge. The forest appears exactly as it did before our forces entered." "And the human heat signatures the captain reported?" "Also gone, sir." This was impossible. 50 Korthak soldiers in full battle armor, equipped with energy weapons, personal shields, and communication gear, could not simply vanish without leaving any trace. Even if they had been killed, there should be bodies, equipment, some sign of battle. "I want a full company deployed to that area immediately," Zethkar ordered. "Maximum sensor coverage, constant communication, and orders to withdraw at the first sign of anything unusual." "Sir," Major Clixton interrupted carefully, "Captain Mordak's team was supposed to be our best. If they could not handle whatever threat exists in that region, perhaps sending more soldiers is not the appropriate response." Zethkar turned his 6 eyes on his tactical advisor. "Are you suggesting we abandon the ground invasion because we cannot explain some equipment failures?" "Sir, I am suggesting that we may be facing an enemy we do not understand. In military history, the greatest disasters come from commanders who refuse to acknowledge when their initial assumptions were incorrect. The bridge fell silent. Everyone present knew that Major Clixton was referring to the Battle of Arcturus Prime, where Admiral Velthok had lost an entire fleet because he insisted the enemy could not have developed new weapons technology. "Deploy the company," Zethkar repeated firmly, "but equip them with the new sensor arrays from the research division. If there is some form of stealth technology we have not encountered before, those sensors should detect it." The company deployed 6 hours later. 120 elite soldiers, the pride of the Korthak military, equipped with the most advanced detection equipment the Empire possessed. Zethkar monitored their progress from the orbital command center, watching their biosignatures move through the Canadian wilderness in perfect formation. For 4 hours, everything proceeded normally. The company reported finding evidence of human evacuation routes, abandoned campsites, and scattered supplies. Their advanced sensors detected no threats, no hidden weapons, no signs of advanced technology. Then, in the space of 12 minutes, every biosignature vanished from the orbital display. The communications officer tried desperately to re-establish contact. "Alpha Company, please respond. Alpha Company, this is Orbital Command. Please acknowledge." Nothing but static filled the communication channels. "Emergency protocols," Zethkar ordered, his voice tight with controlled panic. "I want immediate orbital reconnaissance of their last known position." High-resolution imaging showed the forest exactly as it had appeared before. Trees, undergrowth, a small stream, some scattered human equipment from the evacuations, no signs of battle, no crater from explosives, no scorch marks from energy weapons, no indication that 120 soldiers had ever been in the area. "Sir?" the sensor operator called out, his voice shaking slightly. "I am detecting some anomalous readings from the area." "What kind of anomalous readings?" "Unknown, sir. The sensors are picking up trace amounts of, something. Not energy signatures, not biological markers, not technological emissions. Something we have never encountered before." Zethkar stared at the tactical display, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Over the past 5 days, the Korthak Empire had lost nearly 1,000 soldiers without understanding how or why. Elite units, veteran warriors, entire companies of trained killers had simply disappeared. "Sir," Colonel Tekmar's voice came through from the surface, "I am requesting immediate recall of all ground forces to defensive positions around major population centers." "Denied," Zethkar replied automatically, then paused. "Explain your reasoning." "Sir, my soldiers are refusing patrol assignments. Word of the disappearances has spread through the ranks and morale is approaching collapse. These are warriors who have fought across the galaxy, but they are afraid of an enemy they cannot see, cannot fight, and cannot understand." Fear. Zethkar had never thought he would hear that word applied to Korthak soldiers. They were bred for combat, trained from childhood to face any threat the galaxy could produce. But they were facing something outside their experience, outside their training, outside their understanding of warfare itself. "I want a meeting with the human negotiators," he announced suddenly. "Sir?" Vexilin looked confused. "The humans who surrendered on behalf of their governments. Bring them up to the ship. I want to ask them some questions." 2 hours later, Zethkar found himself in the ship's conference room facing 3 human officials who had been negotiating surrender terms. They were smaller than he had expected, fragile-looking creatures with soft skin and no natural armor. It was difficult to believe that such beings could pose any threat to his warriors. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Korthak Imperial Fleet," he began, using the ship's translation system to convert his words into human languages. "I have some questions about your military capabilities." The lead human, an older male with graying hair, nodded politely. "I am Secretary General Harrison of the United Nations. We are prepared to cooperate fully with your occupation forces." "Good. I want to know about your special forces, your elite military units, your most advanced weapons systems. Harrison looked puzzled. Commander, as we discussed in our initial negotiations, we surrender unconditionally. Our military forces have been ordered to stand down. We have no secret weapons or hidden capabilities. Zethkar leaned forward, his massive form dwarfing the human across the table. Over the past 5 days, nearly 1,000 of my soldiers have disappeared without explanation. They were investigating human evacuation routes in remote areas. Are you telling me your people had nothing to do with these disappearances? The 3 humans exchanged glances, and Zethkar noticed something in their expressions he had not expected. Not fear, not defiance, but confusion, concern. Commander, Harrison said slowly, I need to be very clear about something. Our military command has been in contact with all organized resistance groups and civilian evacuation coordinators. Everyone has been ordered to avoid contact with your forces and to surrender immediately if encountered. No one has been authorized to engage in combat operations. Then how do you explain the loss of my troops? I cannot explain it, Commander. Are you certain they encountered human forces? Zethkar studied the human's face carefully. In decades of interrogating prisoners and negotiating with conquered peoples, he had learned to read expressions and body language across dozens of species. Secretary General Harrison was telling the truth. He genuinely had no knowledge of any military action against Korthak forces. Show me the evacuation routes your people are using, Zethkar demanded. Harrison gestured to one of his assistants, who activated a portable display device. A map of North America appeared, marked with dozens of colored lines leading from major cities into remote wilderness areas. These are the primary evacuation corridors, Harrison explained. Civilian populations from urban areas are moving to predetermined safe zones in national parks, wilderness preserves, and other remote locations where they can wait out the occupation period. Zethkar compared the human map to his own tactical display. Every location where his forces had disappeared corresponded exactly to these evacuation routes. What kind of people are in these evacuation groups? He asked. Mostly families with children, elderly citizens, and essential civilian support personnel, some medical staff, engineers, and logistics coordinators to help establish temporary communities. No military personnel? Very few. Perhaps some veterans among the civilian population and a small number of National Guard units assigned to help coordinate the evacuations, but they have strict orders to avoid any combat engagement. Zethkar was quiet for a long time, processing this information. If the humans were telling the truth, and he believed they were, then his forces were not being eliminated by enemy soldiers or advanced weapons. They were disappearing while investigating groups of fleeing civilians. I want detailed information on every person involved in these evacuations, he finally said. Names, backgrounds, capabilities, equipment they are carrying. Of course, Commander. We will provide whatever information you require. As the humans were escorted back to the surface, Zethkar remained in the conference room, staring at the evacuation route map. Somewhere in those wilderness areas, something was happening to his soldiers. Something that left no traces, no evidence, no explanation. That evening brought the worst news yet. The 7th Reconnaissance Battalion, 200 soldiers investigating evacuation routes in the Rocky Mountains, had gone silent during a routine patrol. Their last transmission had been a standard report. Multiple human heat signatures detected. Appeared to be family groups with children. No weapons signatures, approaching for standard processing. Then nothing. Sir, the communication officer's voice carried barely controlled panic. We are receiving scattered transmissions from ground forces across all operational areas. What kind of transmissions? Requests for immediate extraction, sir. Units are reporting unusual phenomena in areas with human evacuation activity. What kind of phenomena? Difficult to describe, sir. Equipment malfunctions, sensor anomalies, soldiers reporting feeling watched or followed. Nothing concrete, but the pattern is consistent across all operational zones. Zethkar activated the ship-wide communication system once again, but this time his words carried none of the confidence that had marked the beginning of the invasion. All ground forces, this is command. Effective immediately, no unit is to investigate human evacuation routes without direct orbital fire support standing by. Any patrol that encounters civilian evacuation groups is to maintain distance and report to command before approaching. Sir, Major Clixton approached cautiously. Perhaps we should consider the possibility that we are dealing with something beyond conventional military capabilities. Explain. What if the humans have developed some form of technology or capability that our intelligence failed to detect? Something that can neutralize our forces without leaving conventional evidence. Zethkar had been considering the same possibility, but it raised questions that he did not want to confront. If the humans possessed such capabilities, why had they allowed their conventional military forces to be defeated so easily? Why surrender their governments if they had weapons that could eliminate Korthak soldiers without trace? Run complete sensor sweeps of all areas where our forces have disappeared, he ordered. Full spectrum analysis, gravimetric scanning, quantum residue detection. I want to know if there is any form of energy or technology in those regions that we have not identified. The scans took 6 hours to complete, analyzing vast amounts of data from multiple disappearance sites across 3 continents. When the results came in, they only deepened the mystery. Sir, the science officer reported, the scans show no evidence of advanced technology, energy weapons, or any form of device capable of harming our forces. The areas appear to contain only natural terrain and scattered human equipment. But the trace anomalies we detected earlier? Still present, sir, but we cannot identify their source or nature. They do not match any known technology signatures in our database. Zethkar stood at the viewing portal, looking down at Earth's surface. Somewhere in those forests and mountains, nearly 1,500 Korthak soldiers had vanished without explanation. His invasion force, which should have conquered this primitive world in days, was being systematically reduced by an enemy he could not identify, could not locate, and could not understand. For the first time in his military career, Commander Zethkar was forced to consider a possibility he had never imagined, that he was facing an enemy far more dangerous than he had ever encountered, and that enemy might not be human at all. The revelation came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Chen had been among the civilian evacuees who disappeared from the Colorado Rockies, along with 300 other humans and an entire Korthak company that had been sent to investigate their movements. Unlike the others, she had managed to activate an emergency beacon before vanishing, and somehow that beacon had continued transmitting for 72 hours before falling silent. Commander Zethkar had ordered an immediate investigation of the beacon's location, but what the orbital sensors detected made no sense. The device was moving in a pattern that suggested it was being carried through underground passages that did not appear on any geological survey of the region. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "the beacon has stopped moving. It appears to be approximately 2 kilometers underground, in what our scans indicate should be solid bedrock." "That is impossible," Zethkar replied. But his certainty was much weaker than his words. Nothing about this invasion had followed the rules of possibility. "Sir," Vexilin approached with a data pad containing the most recent intelligence reports. "I have been analyzing the patterns of our disappeared forces, cross-referenced with human evacuation data and geological surveys of the affected areas." "What have you found?" "Every disappearance has occurred in regions that humans have designated as national parks, wilderness preserves, or protected natural areas. These zones have been largely undeveloped by human industrial civilization for decades or centuries." Zethkar considered this information. "You think they are using these areas as some form of military staging ground?" "Perhaps, sir. But there is something else. I have been reviewing historical records of human military conflicts, looking for any evidence of capabilities we might have missed. She activated the display, showing footage from human wars over the past century. Conventional battles with tanks, aircraft, and infantry forces that looked exactly as primitive as Korthak intelligence had assessed. However, Vexilin continued, I also found these records. The display changed to show different kinds of conflicts. Small groups of humans operating in difficult terrain, using guerrilla tactics, surviving in environments that should have been impossible, accomplishing objectives against vastly superior forces through methods that defied conventional military logic. Humans call it asymmetric warfare, Vexilin explained. They have a documented history of defeating technologically superior enemies by refusing to fight on their enemies' terms. These are still primitive tactics, Zethkar objected. Hidden explosives, ambush attacks, psychological warfare, nothing that could threaten our soldiers. Sir, with respect, I am not certain we are dealing with conventional tactics. Before Zethkar could respond, an urgent communication came through from the surface. The voice belonged to Lieutenant Grixipol, one of the few surviving officers from the ground forces. Commander, I am transmitting from the evacuation zone in what humans call the Appalachian Mountains. Sir, you need to see this. The main display activated, showing helmet camera footage from Lieutenant Grixipol's position. He was standing at the entrance to what appeared to be a natural cave system, but the walls showed clear signs of artificial modification. Smooth surfaces, regular angles, passages that extended far beyond what the orbital sensors had detected. Sir, we found this entrance while investigating the disappearance of Captain Tholrek's unit. It appears the humans have been excavating extensive underground facilities in these regions. How extensive? Zethkar asked. Unknown, sir. Our scans indicate the passages extend for several kilometers in multiple directions, but they are also showing readings we cannot interpret. The camera footage showed Lieutenant Grixipol moving deeper into the cave system. The walls became more obviously artificial, covered with symbols and markings that did not match any human language in the Korthak database. Lieutenant, Zethkar ordered, withdraw from that area immediately and await orbital support. Sir, I am receiving a transmission from inside the cave system. What kind of transmission? The audio quality was poor, filled with static and interference, but the voice was clearly human. A woman speaking in English, her words translated by the ship's computer. Korthak Forces, this is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am speaking on behalf of the civilian evacuees from the Colorado region. We need to discuss terms. Zethkar felt his chitinous plates shift with surprise. Dr. Chen, you were reported missing 4 days ago, along with 300 other civilians and one of my companies. Yes, Commander, we are all quite safe. We need to talk. Where are my soldiers? They are also safe, Commander. That is what we need to discuss. Lieutenant Grixipol's camera showed him emerging from the cave system into a vast underground chamber. What he saw there defied every assumption the Korthak Empire had made about human civilization. The chamber was enormous, clearly artificial, equipped with technology that looked nothing like the primitive human systems they had been studying. Smooth walls covered with displays showing incomprehensible data. Devices that hummed with energy signatures the Korthak sensors could not identify. And everywhere, humans working with equipment that seemed to bend the laws of physics as the Empire understood them. My God, Lieutenant Grixipol whispered, his words automatically translated and transmitted to the orbiting fleet. But what shocked Zethkar most was not the advanced technology. It was the Korthak soldiers standing peacefully among the humans, their weapons powered down, their armor intact, apparently unharmed but completely docile. Dr. Chen, Zethkar's voice carried a dangerous edge. What have you done to my warriors? We have not harmed them in any way, Commander. We simply invited them to understand. Understand what? The truth about humanity. Dr. Chen appeared on Lieutenant Grixipol's camera feed. She was a small woman, probably in her 50s, wearing simple civilian clothes. She looked exactly like the primitive human that Korthak intelligence had described. But when she spoke, her words carried authority that made Zethkar's chitin crawl. "Commander, your species has been observing humanity for several decades, studying our technology, cataloging our capabilities, preparing for conquest. But you made a fundamental error in your analysis." "What error?" "You assumed that what you could observe represented the totality of human civilization." Dr. Chen gestured to the vast chamber around her, filled with humans and docile Korthak soldiers working alongside each other at incomprehensible tasks. "Humanity has been aware of your surveillance for over 40 years. We knew you were coming long before your first ships entered our solar system. Everything you observed, every military exercise you monitored, every technology demonstration you recorded, was carefully designed to present exactly the image we wanted you to see." Zethkar felt the bottom drop out of his world. Impossible. Our surveillance was undetectable. "Commander, humanity has been traveling between the stars for over 2 centuries. We have settlements in 17 different star systems and diplomatic relationships with 43 different species. Did you really think we would not notice your primitive scouting methods?" The main display activated, showing images that shattered everything Zethkar thought he knew. Human spacecraft that dwarfed Korthak vessels, moving through space using propulsion systems that violated known physics. Human cities on distant worlds that housed billions of people. Human research facilities that seemed to manipulate matter at the molecular level. "This is not possible," Zethkar said, but his words lacked conviction. "Your empire controls approximately 15 star systems in this region of the galaxy," Dr. Chen continued. "Humanity has active colonies in over 300 systems across 7 different galactic arms. We have been a spacefaring civilization for longer than your species has had written language. Then why did we allow you to invade? Why did we not reveal our capabilities immediately?" Dr. Chen's expression became almost motherly. "Because we needed to understand your intentions toward less advanced species. We needed to know if the Korthak Empire could be reasoned with, or if it represented a threat to developing civilizations." Lieutenant Grixpol's camera panned across the underground facility, showing technology that hurt to look at directly, devices that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the normal 3, humans working alongside beings that clearly were not from Earth. "Your soldiers have been experiencing what we call cultural integration," Dr. Chen explained. "They are not harmed, not imprisoned, not coerced. They are simply being exposed to information that allows them to understand their place in the actual galactic community." "You are controlling their minds," Zethkar accused. "Not controlling, Commander. Educating. Your warriors are learning that the galaxy is far larger, far more complex, and far more interconnected than the Korthak Empire has taught them. They are discovering that there are forms of existence, types of intelligence, and ways of understanding reality that their training never prepared them for." The camera showed several Korthak soldiers working peacefully alongside humans at stations covered with displays that showed star maps extending far beyond anything in Korthak records. The soldiers looked calm, focused, but fundamentally changed in ways that Zethkar could not define. "What do you want?" he asked. "We want the Korthak Empire to join the actual galactic community," Dr. Chen replied. "Not as conquerors, but as partners. Your species has qualities that would be valuable in the broader universe, but your current social structure and militaristic approach limit your potential." "And if we refuse?" Dr. Chen's expression became sad rather than threatening. "Then you will continue to exist as you do now, controlling your 15 small systems, believing yourselves to be a major power, never knowing that you are like children playing with toys while the adult universe operates around you." Zethkar stared at the display, watching his soldiers working calmly among humans who claimed to represent a civilization that spanned hundreds of star systems. Everything he had believed about humanity, about the Korthak Empire's place in the galaxy, about the very nature of reality itself, was crumbling around him. "How long?" he asked quietly. "Have you been manipulating galactic civilizations this way?" "We do not manipulate, Commander. We guide, we protect, we nurture. When a species reaches a certain level of development and begins to expand into space, we evaluate whether they will contribute positively to the galactic community or whether they represent a threat to developing worlds." "And the Korthak Empire?" "Has been under evaluation for 43 years. This invasion was your final test." Zethkar looked around his bridge at the officers and crew who had served under him for decades. They were all staring at the displays showing technology and civilizations beyond their comprehension, their faces expressing the same mixture of awe and terror that he felt. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on your choice, Commander. Your soldiers who have undergone cultural integration will return to your ships carrying new knowledge and perspectives. They will tell you about what they have learned, about the true size and complexity of the galactic community, about humanity's role as one of the older guardian species." "Guardian species?" "Civilizations that have reached sufficient maturity to take responsibility for protecting and guiding younger races. The role your empire could grow into, if you choose growth over conquest." Dr. Chen gestured, and the display changed to show Earth as seen from space. But now Zethkar could see what had been hidden from Korthak sensors: vast orbital installations, spacecraft moving in patterns that suggested traffic control for a major interstellar hub, energy signatures indicating technology so advanced that it barely registered on Korthak instruments. "Earth is not a primitive world waiting for conquest, Commander. It is the administrative center for this entire galactic region, home to beings and institutions responsible for the welfare of thousands of developing civilizations." "Including ours," Zethkar said, understanding finally dawning. "The Korthak Empire has been under our protection since you first developed interstellar travel. We have prevented 3 different species from conquering your territory, mediated 2 civil wars that could have destroyed your civilization, and provided subtle technological guidance that allowed you to develop faster than you would have naturally." Zethkar felt his legs weaken. The Korthak Empire's greatest victories, their most advanced technologies, their expansion into 15 star systems, had all been possible because humanity had been secretly protecting and guiding them. "Why?" he asked. "Because every species deserves the chance to reach its potential," Dr. Chen replied simply. "The Korthak have many admirable qualities. You are brave, loyal, and capable of great achievements when properly motivated, but you needed to learn that strength comes from cooperation, not domination." Lieutenant Grixpol's camera showed him approaching a group of his former comrades. The Korthak soldiers looked up as he approached, and their expressions carried a peace and understanding that he had never seen before. "Lieutenant," one of them called out in their native language, "you need to see this. You need to understand what we have learned." "Commander," Dr. Chen's voice carried gentle authority, "your choice is simple. You can return to your territory with your surviving forces and continue as you have, remaining forever isolated from the true galactic community. Or you can begin the process of cultural integration that will allow the Korthak Empire to become part of something much greater than conquest and domination." Zethkar looked one final time at the displays, showing the vast human civilization that had been hidden from his sight, the technology that made his fleet look like primitive toys, the interconnected galactic community that his empire had never known existed. "We choose," he said quietly, "to learn." Dr. Chen smiled. "Then welcome to the real galaxy, Commander. Let us begin."